This is going to be a friends-only video because, frankly, I'm just sick of everyone's shit. Don't want to deal with it. I just left the pediatrician's office with my little girl. You guys, when I say this is unbelievable, I mean it's unfucking believable. The shit that people are getting away with. So the pediatrician asks if me or my husband are going to get vaccinated against COVID-19. And I told her no. And she says, not at all, not planning on it. No, we're not doing it. She said, well, unfortunately, you can no longer have your kids as patients here. You need to find a new doctor. And this has been my kid's doctor for the last 9 years. And just like that, we're cutting ties. Getting real fucking tired of this fight. I really am. But gotta keep doing it.
Hey Luke, are you fully vaxxed?
Yes, I am, Michael.
How does it feel to be a shill?
How does it feel to be a pathetic liberal shill?
Yeah, a total cuck.
A total sheep. Yeah, how does it feel? You know what? It didn't feel great for the first day after the vaccine, Michael, but now I'm fine. You know, no side effects. And that is why a lot of people have been taking the vaccine, because guess what? It protects you from COVID, doesn't have any major health ramifications at all. And yeah, obviously, that is why it is so bizarre to see so many millions of people in America particularly, which is what we're going to be talking about today, turning down the chance at this vaccine. Literally, COVID has killed so many people. Here's just a simple, easy shot, which is free, which makes sure that you don't have to, die, basically, of this disease. But a lot of people aren't taking this vaccine. And they are, of course, Michael, conservatives. And we are going to answer the question today, why is that the case? Why aren't conservatives taking the COVID vaccine? That lady at the beginning, of course, I mean, look, she might not have been conservative, but she probably was.
Yeah.
But this is, of course, a big phenomenon. Obviously, there are right-wing cranks in every country, but we're going to be focusing on America. You just have to look at the COVID vaccination rates in a lot of these southern states, i.e. the Republican states, and compare it to, the Democrat states to see that, yes, it is indeed conservatives who are not taking the vaccine. You can look at polling, which shows that Republicans are far more likely to be vaccine hesitant. Plus, in the recent California recall election, and you can see the results of that on screen, the results by county, I don't know why they did this, but no is red and yes is blue. Yes is the Republican vote, no is the Democrat votes. But anyway, you can see the counties which voted yes for Gavin Newsom's recall nicely line up with the amount of COVID cases in California from that recent election. So there's some nice recent evidence there. And also, Michael, have you heard of this? The phenomenon of conservative radio hosts passing away.
Yes. I have heard of this. I can't think of any specific examples because I think it's usually just kind of relatively local kind of, it's not your we're past the days of your Rush Limbaughs, but I have seen a lot of examples of these. They're dropping like flies.
Yes, they are dropping like flies, but you said you haven't got any specific examples. Well, I have. Here on screen you can see Tennessee Christian radio host linked vaccines to Mark of the Beast, dies of COVID. Conservative radio host and vaccine critic dies of COVID-19 complications. His friends and family say Dick Farrell urged others to get vaccinated before his death. Well, at least he saw the light. Phil Valentine, conservative radio host and vaccine skeptic, dies of COVID-19. And after a 3-week COVID-19 battle, Daytona Beach talk radio host Mark Bernier, what does he do, Michael?
He survives, gets superpowers because he didn't get the estrogen injected into him by the government.
Sadly, no. Option B, he died.
You know what? There's only one explanation for this, Luke. Obviously, we thought it was the 5G towers. It's actually clearly radio towers that are doing it.
That's good. Well, you say that. I've got a bit of evidence to contradict that, though, Michael, because this is... yeah, I know.
Is it a
the
liberal
Daily
radio host have been resurrected?
No. Alabama Pickers, this YouTube couple from Alabama, hawking resale tips and vaccine skepticism, both died of COVID-19. Husband and wife died of COVID-19. And they weren't radio hosts. So maybe it is that they're not taking the vaccine. So yeah, that segment was just about, there of course has been, a lot of conservative people who have not taken the vaccine, and therefore a lot of conservative people who have caught COVID or indeed died of COVID-19. And indeed, there are many stories in, again, the southern states mainly, of hospitals just being overflown with COVID patients from the vaccine not being taken by their residents. And of course, there's a lot of conservatives down there in places like Alabama or Arkansas, etc. The question is, Michael, though, why? We're going to get into this now. Why are these conservatives not getting this COVID vaccine? Start us off, Michael. Give us reason why.
Well, I think the first reason is just that they seem to believe that they know better than the doctors and obviously the various kind of scientists who have been engaging in peer-reviewed research to arrive at the conclusion that obviously any risks with this vaccine are dramatically outweighed by the benefits. And obviously, I mean, you've seen like government kind of scientific institutions publishing things like that saying, you know, we recommend people take the vaccine because it's good. And yet, of course, these people do their research on a peer-reviewed academic journal called Facebook, or Reddit, or the hair salon where they talk to all of their conservative friends, and they've come up with an alternative conclusion, which is that the vaccine is actually deadly. So in some sense, obviously, the reason why they're against it is because they think that they know better than the doctors and scientists who do actual peer-reviewed research. Although that does, of course, beg the question, why would they believe that?
Well, it could just be they're stupid, Michael. It could just be they're stupid. That has to be a reason. And like we were always going to come to it. Why aren't conservatives getting the vaccine? Because a lot of them are quite dumb. Certainly in America, at least. And I think that can be seen with the alternative that conservatives are using to try and treat COVID, which is, of course, ivermectin, the horse drug, as it were, a drug for horses, which no studies have said that ivermectin is good for humans. At least the horse variant, which is, of course, in the United States, which you can buy for your horses, and that didn't stop conservatives, though, from going out and getting it. As you can see from this USA FDA tweet, which I love so much. You are not a horse. You are not a cow. Seriously, y'all, stop it.
Wow.
Something which I never thought I'd ever see tweeted out, but there you go, there it is. And this isn't some, just random thing that, there's only a few cases of conservatives taking ivermectin. This is a proper phenomenon. As you can see from this tweet, overdoses of ivermectin are backing up ERs and ambulance services in rural Oklahoma. People are taking portions of the drug meant for a full-sized horse. That's the thing. Like, not only are they taking ivermectin, they're taking a dose. Like it says on the box, probably like take this much, and they're like, well, that's for the horse. Hey, am I that much bigger than a horse?
Well, they are Americans. So.
That's a good. Yeah, so maybe it's not that stupid a conclusion. But yeah, the fact that it's causing severe ambulance shortages in rural Oklahoma, I imagine in a lot of other places. Yeah, this isn't some passing thing. This is a real thing that conservatives are doing. And again, why? Well, that they're stupid, but also there is this mentality, and you talked about it before, Michael, about do your own research. That's what they say. Like going on Facebook, basically they have this mentality that, well, yeah, you've got your peer-reviewed studies, but I can do it better on my own. And that is their individualist perspective on life, which is why, by the way, that perspective is dumb. When you think about it, the conservative American, very individualistic, to a fault, as we can say. And it's like, no, I'm going to take control of the situation. I'm going to, figure out my own way to do it. I'm not going to be a sheep. I'm going to, be a lone wolf. And therefore you turn it from a lone wolf into a horse.
Yeah, I mean, it's like they say, there's nothing cooler than being a lone wolf, except at wolf picnics where you don't have a partner for the wolf wheelbarrow races.
That's a good note, Michael.
Thank you. But you're forgetting the most important thing. I mean, you're talking about themselves. We got to remember also, ain't no one going to teach them how to medicate my kids. You got to remember, it's not just them, it's also their kids. They're very kind of passionate about the fact that, like, it's not just, what they're being injected with. It's like what they want to put in their children too. So I guess there is that, while there's that individualism, there's also that sense of ownership of their kids.
Yeah, there's this fetishization of the innocence of children among right-wingers. You can see that with abortion. And, oh no, they're putting masks on children. How could they? Like, there is just this crazy thing that affects these conservatives, which is a vulnerability to quack marketing cures, which we have seen with Alex Jones, with that famous screenshot, like 45 days later, you take this bone broth or something. But that's the thing. It's like this whole thing of not trusting anyone but themselves, and also this thing which has been growing in conservative circles for a while, which is let's take this, supplement, which, nobody but, the really smart people actually know about, because we actually know what's good for ourselves.
Actually, there's a good example of that with nutrition. Obviously, Jordan Peterson, quite a popular right-wing quack, and he's an advocate for the carnivore diet, where he preaches that vegetables are bad for you and you should just be eating meat. And I remember one time I saw somebody who did a test where they only ate eggs for a long time and their cholesterol went up. And one of the comments was from a Jordan Peterson fan. It said, "I know why this is. It's because you had onions with the eggs." And you just think scientists have worked out that eggs have cholesterol in them, and yet these people are like, no, actually, it's the onions because it's got phytoestrogens in it. That's just another example of how they really like this idea that the man has been lying to them and they know what's really healthy.
Yeah, they don't trust people in lab coats or whatever, and that they themselves, the individual who this rugged individual, who actually knows what's good and bad in the world.
They've had quite enough of experts.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and has this superior knowledge. I genuinely, the arrogance and the stupidity, I don't know where it comes from, but yeah, it's making them take fucking horse drugs. That's sending them to the hospital and shitting out their intestines because the horse drug is killing their intestines. So yeah, maybe it's not a good idea to have this mentality. Maybe, like I said, it's this individualist mentality to a fault. But of course, Michael, there is precedent with conservatives not believing in science. Climate change, of course. Climate change. There has been, of course, a conservative backlash to things like the Green New Deal and things of that nature. That's just an example. I remember in a recent video from Marjorie Taylor Greene, she is shooting a Toyota Prius, which is hilarious because that's such a mid-2000s liberal meme thing, the Toyota Prius. But they're not exactly that culturally trendy, I guess, our conservatives. But anyway, Michael, tell us about climate change. Why there is this precedent?
Well, yeah, I mean, again, I think obviously it's that they're kind of stupid, but I think the other aspect of it, it's almost like they have blinders on with certain conspiracies. And actually, nutrition's another good example where they recognize that the carb stuff was obviously, the bread industry pushing it, and yet they don't recognize that the egg industry and dairy industries might have the same motivations. But more absurd is that they've somehow concluded that all of the kind of peer-reviewed journals by climate scientists that are just saying hey, let's reduce our amount of, fossil fuels we're using and things like that, stuff where there's really not much of a kind of nefarious opportunity for benefit here for anybody, that's all a conspiracy theory. And yet the multi-billion-dollar companies that make huge amounts of money from selling these fossil fuels and have to pay large amounts of money if there are environmental regulations, apparently all of that science that's supposed to be exonerating fossil fuels, that's legitimate and that's real. And you think, you almost can't even say they're conspiracy theorists because it's they don't even notice, when there's actually a legitimate case or a conspiracy, they're well, that seems legitimate to me. And it's just absurd. No,
Michael, there is a lot of harm with these green policies because what it means is I have to get rid of my truck. Well, fuck you. I'm gonna. You know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna buy an even bigger truck.
Oh yeah.
And that's what you've seen over the last few years. Just these. I don't know. I have to think it's a last few years phenomenon. Just these absurdly massive trucks being sold in America. Because it's basically well, you're trying to take my truck away. I can't. Fucking have my gas guzzling truck because everything is about me. The whole world should revolve around me because I'm a conservative. I won't have to sacrifice and maybe drive an electric car that isn't as big. Nah, fuck you. And that is, I guess, why they then concoct these conspiracy theories in their head to try and justify the fact that they're not being selfish, and also the fact that that they don't look at these multi-billion-dollar corporations, oil corporations, fossil fuel, etc., influencing world politics, and they don't look at that and see that as a problem because, well, unsurprisingly, they have no idea how the world works. You said, there's no systemic analysis of why stuff actually happens in a global economy, in politics. In, for example, what's going on right now in Congress in America with the bipartisan infrastructure deal and the $3.5 trillion Bernie Sanders-backed infrastructure deal. Why there's so much contention amongst that? Well, it's because of fossil fuel companies donating to certain politicians like, say, Joe Manchin. But yeah, they don't care about that because, they don't, have no idea how the world works. And it makes sense because, otherwise they wouldn't be conservatives because they actually saw what was going on then. Like, they would have to change their ideology, like, naturally. So they can't do that. So they just, like, stick their heads in the sand on this, I guess. So yeah, the point is basically there is a precedent for them not, like, understanding, conspiracy theories and just, like, science in general because they don't know how the world works. And of course, their natural individualism and, you could say, stupidity leads them to taking awful drugs which don't help instead of the COVID vaccine. But there is one other reason why, Michael, and this I think is a big reason why Conservatives aren't in fact taking this COVID vaccine, and it is resentment, i.e. I want to do the opposite of what the Liberals want to do. And this, I think, can be best displayed in this John Nolte article from Breitbart. So this is what the article is titled. As you can see, Nolte, Howard Stern proves Democrats want unvaccinated Trump voters dead. Do you want to know why I think Howard Stern is going full monster with his mockery of 3 fellow human beings who died of the coronavirus? Because leftists like Stern and CNN lol, I guess that's what he calls CNN,
Very
and
clever.
Joe Biden and Nancy Pelosi and Anthony Fauci are deliberately looking to manipulate Trump supporters into not getting the vaccine.
Oh, wow.
Nothing else makes sense to me. Nothing else, really? Okay. In a country where elections are decided on razor-thin margins, does it not benefit one side if their opponents simply drop dead? If I wanted to use reverse psychology to convince people not to get a life-saving vaccination, I would do exactly what Stern and the left are doing. I would bully and taunt and mock and ridicule you for not getting vaccinated, knowing the human response would be, hey, fuck you, I'm never getting vaccinated. So
predictable.
that's the thing, he says that's the human response, but it's more accurate to say that's the Republican or conservative response. Oh, you want me to do something? Nancy Pelosi and Dr. Anthony Fauci? Well, you know what? Fuck you. I'm not doing it then.
Yeah, oh, sorry, I just need to jump in and say this actually reminds me of a really bad Babylon Bee article, which was like something like AOC suffocates after Donald Trump says breathing is good. And it's like the projection in that article is just off the charts.
Oh, yeah.
Because, like, obviously that's the exact mentality that conservatives have. I mean, obviously, it's a ridiculous premise, but, like, the idea of just, if you want me to, if Democrats like it, it must be evil. And it's like, conversely, I don't think Democrats really have that reverse mentality.
No, I don't think they do, but you can clearly see in this article that Republicans do. The article continues, and why is that a perfectly human response? Because no one ever wants to feel like they are being bullied or ridiculed or mocked or pushed into doing anything. But you don't need to feel like that. That's the thing, you don't need to sign, like, away your, like, Republican membership or say Donald Trump is an idiot when you get this COVID vaccine. You can just go and get it. Who wants to cave to a piece of shit like Howard Stern or Jimmy Kimmel, or these repulsive doctors refusing to treat the unvaccinated, or Betty Midler, or end of bracket? Who wants to feel like they're caving to a guy who's such a piece of shit he publicly mocks people who have died? And he's not just a piece of shit mocking them, he's a piece of shit hurting the families the dead men left behind. Yeah, because they didn't get a vaccine, which is very easy to get, and they railed against getting it. Like, it is the ultimate, like, Schadenfreude. Like, I don't know how you can sit there and, like, complain and whine about it when it was their choice not to get the vaccine. They could have prevented themselves dying very easily.
They hurt their families more by not getting the vaccine.
Exactly. That's very good. They hurt their families by not fucking getting it. He continues, no one wants to cave to a piece of shit like that, or a scumbag like Fauci. I just love that they hate Fauci so much. Or any of the scumbags at CNN, lol. So we don't. And what's the result? They're all vaccinated, and we're not. And when you look at the numbers, the only number that matters, which is who's dying, it's overwhelmingly the unvaccinated who are dying. And they have just manipulated millions of their political enemies into the unvaccinated camp. I mean, they have manipulated them by just saying, get the vaccine. Again, like, if that's enough manipulation for you, I don't know, maybe your side are just, like, really reactionary and resentful. But anyway, he continues. According to the CDC, 99.5% of those dying of the China flu, he switched it up, are unvaccinated. So even if they're lying or exaggerating, even if it's 75 or 80%, those numbers are pretty stark. Could it possibly be that the left has manipulated huge swathes of Trump voters into believing that they are owning the left by not taking the life-saving Trump vaccine? I mean, it could be that, or it could just be that conservatives are being, very stubborn and not doing it, and the left is not having to do anything really, which is, pretty obvious. I think if you look at, say, Tucker Carlson, who is, very popular in conservative circles, he continues, have you ever thought that maybe the left has us right where they want us? Just stand back for a moment and think about this. Right now, a countless number of Trump supporters believe that they are owning the left by refusing to take a life-saving vaccine. A vaccine, by the way, everyone on the left has taken. Oh, and so has Trump. Now think about this. On this very day, about 1,000 people in the US will die of the China flu. How many of those lives could have been saved if they had been vaccinated? Is it 998? Is it 778? Is it 229? Does it matter? And if the left is all vaccinated and we're not, who's winning?
It's powerful.
Yeah, it is powerful, but that's the thing. Like, the fact is, like, he's answering his own question because the right wing are so obsessed with like owning the libs and basically not doing what the libs tell them to do, and that's the whole basis for this article. Like, he acknowledges that fact. So it's like, well, obviously, if this is what the right wing is obsessed with, then naturally, surely it's their problem. Like, I don't know how we can't put two and two together. That the fact that conservatives are so obsessed with not being owned by the libs, that surely that it is a conservative problem that they're not getting vaccinated, and the left or the liberals or whoever literally has to do nothing.
No, yeah, I mean, this is definitely one of the weirder takes, and obviously, I mean, this person isn't actually anti-vaccine, but I guess he's, discussing the anti-vaccine phenomenon. And yeah, I mean, basically, like, apart from anything else, one, there's the issue that if you're not going to get vaccinated because literally just like a few people on the left are, making fun of unvaccinated people, well, guess what? There's going to be a lot of people, on the left, and there's lots of Democrats in America. So if your logic is, if any of those people, insults unvaccinated people, then you're just not going to get vaccinated, well, then you're screwed. And that's obviously not even getting into how bizarre it is to, basically, I mean, literally we have this expression, cutting off your nose to spite your face. And that does really feel like what a lot of conservatives are doing.
Yeah, cutting their nose off to spite their face really works. I just want to look at this last line of the of the article. Even if this isn't the left's plan, i.e. to get people not to get vaccinated because, it's the conservatives hate the left so much. Even if this isn't the left's plan, who's owning who? Again, that last line is so informative of how conservatives are thinking about this. It's like, who's owning who? Who the fuck cares about who's owning who? Just get the vaccine so you don't die. But they are so obsessed with getting one over on the libs and not doing what they say that, yeah, this is the question. Who's owning who? And that's the thing, like, this anti-vaccine phenomenon among conservatives is based on resentment of the other side. They don't want to get owned. And everything they believe in is a reaction to what the libs believe. Like, the whole conservative movement, as I think you can see from this article, is basically fueled by emotional contrarianism. And it is very immature. That's what I think when I read this article. And this guy rightly explains the mentality of a lot of conservatives not getting the vaccine. These, conservatives are just being very immature. It's what a child would do. Well, you told me to do something, well, I'm not doing it. And I mean, you can argue, well, it does make sense given their ideology, but yeah, it's incredibly childish, and I think it kind of exposes conservatives, at least in America, in a really illuminating way.
Yeah, I mean, I guess maybe the answer is, who's owning who? The conservatives are owning themselves.
Yeah, I mean, they are owning themselves, really, by literally dying. Like, it's incredible, really, and I think this is best encapsulated by this article from the Washington Post. As you can see, Missouri County Coroner removed COVID from death certificates to please grieving families. So basically the families were like, oh no, we don't want him to, everybody to know that he died of COVID. And it is the drill tweet, like, I'm not owned, I continue to insist I'm not owned as I slowly die.
Yeah.
Getting owned is worse than dying, literally. They would rather die than get owned. Like, they have this pathological hatred for the libs. That is, again, it's incredibly childish and immature, but it's also insane that you'd rather die than admit you are wrong. And to link it back to the first vid that we talks about at the very start of the video, the woman who had to get rid of her doctor because she wasn't vaccinated. She said at the end of the video, it's a fight, and she's going to keep trying. And that's how they see it. Like, it's a fight. It's a fight against the libs trying to impose their way of life on the Conservatives. Like, that's literally what it is to them. We've got to stand strong and make sure they don't break us, even if that means dying. Even if that means dying, well, we'll die, because I guess they're Christian as well. They're going to go to heaven, so they'll be rewarded for standing up to the liberal tyranny.
Yep, mark of the beast.
Yeah, like we talked about before, the mark of the beast. Like, that's maybe what they think the COVID vaccine, mark is when it leaves a mark in your arm. It's the mark of the beast. And yeah, that means that basically they are accepting almost death, and they're fine with it as long as they get to just not get, again, we come back to that word again, get owned by the libs. And they'll even die for it, Michael. So there you go. Why are Conservatives not getting the vaccine? Well, there's a lot of reasons, but I think the central major reason is because people like you and me, Michael, we are. And that's enough to just completely turn them away.
Fortunately, that's what we want.
Yes, it is. Make sure you cut this out of the video, Michael, because we don't want anyone, revealing our plan. So make sure this is cut.